What are my rights if I'm accused of domestic violence?
Fifth Amendment right, you're right not to talk or answer questions. And so that's, and then of course you have a right to an attorney. You have the presumption of innocence. We all have that right in this country, right to a trial. So you have all your constitutional rights come along with it. But the one in this area that's critical to follow, and it's almost always applicable in these cases, is your right against self-incrimination, your Fifth Amendment right not to answer questions. And a jury down the road cannot make any inferences based on your decision at the time of the investigation to say, hey, listen, I'm not speaking with you without an attorney. I'm not waiving my Miranda rights. I'm not answering your questions. A jury at a trial cannot hear about that. Therefore, they cannot make any inferences against you for that.
I think another important thing to note that I see a lot is someone gets arrested for domestic assault. They're in jail. Who's the first person they're going to call typically? If they think there's any way of trying to make things better, they're calling their accuser, correct? Yeah. Well, what they don't realize is the second they've been arrested, there's a court order of no contact with the alleged victim. So domestic violence prosecutors love going to the jail calls to see if they've tried to persuade this person to drop charges. Here comes another felony, tampering with the witness in a felony prosecution. And then sometimes, I have clients say, I didn't know I couldn't talk to her. So that's something I think is important to get out there informational-wise.
I ditto that, and that's critical. In St. Louis County, they will routinely, on felony domestic assault charges, use their resources, their investigators and prosecutors themselves will listen to those jail calls, like Chris said, because one of the first calls in somebody locked up will be to try, in many cases, to call their accuser, the alleged victim, to try to get them to dismiss the charges. And so it's critical that folks know that every call in that jail is recorded and listened to, except with your lawyer. And even I don't feel completely comfortable, and I think most lawyers would agree with me here. We don't ever go into the facts of the case over the phone. I just don't have that much trust in the government, frankly. There's prosecutors. I've had a prosecutor say, I was listening to these calls, which they're allowed to do by law. And we always tell our clients, listen, every call is recorded. Use caution. If you want to talk about, hiring a lawyer, when your court date is, how's my baby doing, how's grandma doing, all fine. But do not get in the facts and the substance of this case over the phone. And I've had a prosecutor say, I was listening to calls and I heard them call you. I immediately hung up. And I trust the prosecutors, the ones in St. Louis County. But we never get into the facts. We're never going to be on a phone call saying, let's walk through what happened. We'll do that in person at the jail if they're locked up at the appropriate time. But that is a critical one, as Chris said, is that know that all those phone calls are recorded and they are listened to. And even in a big county with tons of cases like St. Louis County, they still will use resources, investigators, and prosecutors themselves that will listen to those calls.
Wow.
And you would be surprised how many times a defendant incriminates himself. I didn't mean to do it. I just got, things got crazy. Well, that's incriminating, right? You're essentially kind of acknowledging your participation, at least to some extent, into this.
And then the second you get charged with domestic violence, your accuser, the alleged victim, is going to get a call from the prosecutor. They're going to advise, they want them to hang on and to prosecute. They're also going to get a call from a victim advocate. They're going to be encouraging to file an order of protection, also known as a restraining order in Missouri. So, again, right away, there's going to be a lot of hands on the alleged victim to, this is what you ought to do, this is what you ought to do.
Wow.